Martin, if you could do a roll call, please.
Mr. Gomes,
Yeah.
Mrs. Boland,
Here.
Mrs. Boatright.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Dr. Flowers,
Present.
Mr. Leary,
Yeah.
Ms. Winslow.
Here.
Everyone is here.
Thank you. Ms. Boland, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could all stand, the flags over here to the left.
Ready? Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now have a moment of silence. If we could keep the following individuals who have passed away in your thoughts and prayers. Jim Saris, PE teacher at Pell Elementary School and former Rogers High School basketball coach. Joseph Ronald Clism, father of Kate Carrillo, Pell Elementary School teacher. Agnes Michael, aunt of Rebecca Farrell, Thomas TMS paraeducator. Janine Kolborg, grandmother of Lindsay Drapetsky, TMS teacher. Suzanne Waltroth, aunt of Stephen Bruno, Rogers High School custodian. James Cranston Jr., father-in-law of Carolyn Cranston, Pell clerk. Joanne Cassis, cousin of Andrew McCarthy, Pell custodian. Could I have a moment of silence? Thank you. Well, Marcin, is there anybody signed up for public comment among the 10 people here?
No, nobody has signed up for public comment tonight.
That leads us
Nobody.
into
Nobody here.
action item. First action item is 3.1, request for approval of policy 4770, complaint resolution procedure on the second reading. Complaint resolution procedure is presented for adoption on the second reading. Is there a motion to adopt as presented?
Yep.
Ms. Winslow, seconded by Ms. Boatright. Any discussion or questions for Dr. Flowers on policy? I don't believe there was any difference from the first reading to the second reading. There were no changes.
Except what had been brought forth of the first reading.
All right. Not seeing or hearing any discussion. All those in favor of the policy as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is 3.2 to request for approval of policy 5336, cell phone and related devices, second reading. Cell phones and related devices is presented for adoption on the second reading this evening. Is there a motion to approve as presented? Mr. Dring, seconded by Ms. Winslow. Same thing. I don't believe there's any revisions or changes from the first reading to now. Ms. Bowen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'll be voting against this just because I am not in favor of having cell phones in the classroom or the temptation to use them in the classroom. Standing with the long-standing policy I've had.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't vote for the first one. I'm open to
So
vote.
just, I don't know if you heard before, you got to pull it, you got to be able to hear yourself so that they can hear you on the recording.
Absolutely. I also will not be voting in favor of this for similar reasons. I'm just not happy where it's set up right now.
Any other comments, questions? Ms. Winslow?
I think the principle of the policy hasn't changed. We were just changing a few words, so that's what I'm voting on tonight. The principle of the policy, I mean, we're not actually changing anything, just a few words. So I never really liked it in the beginning. A lot of us don't like it, but it was a compromise between parents, teachers, families. So I'm voting in favor of the amendments we're making.
I agree with Ms. Winslow. I mean, I don't think anybody wants the cell phones in the school, but we have to be realistic about this as well. I mean, we could say they have to stay in the lockers. We know they won't, and it'll just be a fiasco. So I think this is the best solution that we came up with, and we did spend a lot of time on this. So I'll be voting in favor of it.
Okay, any other questions, comment, discussion? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of policy 5336 as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Motion carries 5-2. Next action item, 3.3. It's an agreement between the Newport Public Schools and Geneva Jones and Associates. Director Andrade requests approval of this agreement to provide a professional development for staff on September 2nd, 2022. The ARP funds. What is that? American? Oh, okay.
No, we, at this point, we would actually want to pull that item from the agenda.
Okay. That's easy. 3.3 has been approved at the request of Director Andrade. Next action item, 3.4, contract between Rhode Island School for the Blind and Newport Public Schools. Director Andrade requests approval of this contract to provide required services as part of a student IEP. The contract is funded through the local budget. Is there a motion to approve? The contract is presented, Ms. Boland, seconded by Ms. Boatright. Director Andrade, if you want to give a. No,
That is what it is. It's a contract for the Perkins School for the Blind for a student who currently attends the Rhode Island School for the Deaf.
And it's a recurring thing
It
that
is.
we've had for a couple years.
Yes.
Any questions on that? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of the contract as presented tonight signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 3.5. Agreement between CBS Therapy and Newport Public Schools. Director Andrade requests approval of the agreement with CBS Therapy to provide physical, occupational, and/or speech services for Newport Public School students. Local funds will be used to cover the cost of services under this agreement. Is there a motion to approve the agreement as presented? Ms. Boland, seconded by Ms. Boatright. Again, Director Andrade, if you want to give a.
This contract actually covers for us evaluations, typically for students who speak Spanish. They have evaluators in each of those areas who speak Spanish, and we do not.
Ms. Boatright.
When I was looking at it, it looked like they have other services as well, though, right? Is that true? Because-
Yes, they have a lot of services, but the only thing we utilize them for at this particular point is for evaluations.
If we were ever short some staff through, attrition and so on, would it be a viable alternative to use some of that, or? not
It
really?
is. We have reached out to them in the past. Unfortunately, we've never been able to connect. And we had a speech therapist we needed in this past year, and they didn't have a speech therapist available. So it really is dependent upon what you need and what they have available.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Leary.
Mr. Chairman, could you tell us I know the cost is broken down in here per test and things like that. What's the cost last year for this total cost?
I don't have an exact total cost, but I can tell you it was under $5,000.
Under 5,000?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
That answered mine.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of the agreement as presented signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 3.6, contract between Sergeant Regional Resources and Newport Public Schools. Director Andrade requests approval of the contract with Sergeant Regional Resource Center in the amount of $4,950 for the 2022-2023 school year. Federal funds will be used to cover the cost of this agreement. Is there a motion to approve as presented? Ms. Boatright, seconded by Ms. Boland. Director Andrade, if you want to just.
This is another recurring contract that we look at every year. The Resource Center has adjusted the contract language. So this contract is, it's typically $9,000. It's reduced down to $4,950 because they have changed some of the add-on services for pay for service. We currently use them for some facilitation when we have difficult meetings. We use them for professional development. And oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Some legal consultation sometimes for certain special ed issues that become complex.
Any other questions, comments for Director Andre? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of the contract as presented this evening signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next one is 3.7. 3.7 is a letter of engagement between Newport Public Schools and Advocacy Solutions. Communications plan. The communications plan for Newport Public Schools, as prepared for Advocacy Solutions, was developed using ESSA funds and was approved in June 2021. The request for approval is a continuation of the work for fiscal year 23 and is budgeted in ESSA 3 funding. A refresh of the district website has been implemented with additional social media interactions incorporated to promote all schools and district activities. It is important to keep moving forward with the strategic communication plan and a message development to keep the community engaged and informed about opportunities and plans to support students, staff, and families. To highlight our students and staff and to provide regular and consistent school building project updates and publicizing programs and pathways that are offered to our district. Is there a motion to approve as presented this evening? Ms. Boatright, seconded by Ms. Winslow. Superintendent, would you like to add
Thank you.
anything? Or?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think the backup says it all. It's a continuation of the work we've been doing, and we've been very happy and pleased with Advocacy Solutions.
Ms. Boatright?
I just want to say that I've gotten a lot of comments from teachers and students, not students, but parents, saying that the communication has much improved, and I think a lot due to this. And the website looks very nice as well, so thank you.
And I want to thank Marcin Rembitz here, who's our communications leader, and has been leading the effort for the implementation of the new website.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of the agreement as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 3.8 is a universal breakfast program. Director Gonzalez has provided a recommendation for the universal breakfast program at Pell Elementary School for fiscal year 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion to approve the request as presented? Ms. Boland, seconded by Ms. Boatright. I'll get you on the next one, Dr. Flowers. They keep catching my attention. Director Gonzalez.
Good evening, school committee members. Chair, Mr. Gomes, you've really outlined exactly what the request is, and it is to continue our universal breakfast program at Pell.
Question, Ms. Boland.
Well, I just wanted to explain it a little bit more, maybe, for those out there. So for the last 2 years, the federal government has supported and that everything was universal, lunch, supper, and this breakfast program. So now they've gone back to where we basically are going back to where we were 3 years ago. And at that time, we had a universal program for a year. And this new one's going to be really exciting because I know that people wanted to get the hot breakfast in. Serving hot breakfast in a cafeteria that has 4 lunches is difficult to do for all the students. So what the plan is 1 day a week, it'll be kindergarten. 1 day a week, it'll be first grade, second grade, third grade. They'll have a steady day of the week. They come in the morning. And so let's say on Mondays, first graders know that they're going to have a hot breakfast in the cafeteria. We're going to make that breakfast at the beginning consistent so that everybody, if it's pancake week, everybody will get pancakes. We want to get kids used to eating the hot breakfast, and there will be some kind, turnover. The next week we'll serve something else, and this will also the kids will come straight in from the playground, eat in the cafeteria on their given day, and we're hoping it helps to develop some really great habits and getting kids to when you're only served one thing and it's you tend to eat what's in front of you. So, and then there will be in the classroom the more traditional, bagged breakfast going up, not a hot breakfast. But this is just to see how it goes. We think it's going to go really well, and then we can, move on from here. It's called baby steps.
Ms. Boatright?
But also to add to that, what we learned is that the number of students who are eating in the classroom has gone way up from that was just in the cafeteria. So it's to keep all bellies full. So that's why we're doing the mixed program.
Ms. Winslow?
I just wanted to thank Principal Westman because that was really a good idea.
Yeah.
She launched that idea, like the rotating breakfast in the cafeteria, and as a way also to meet somebody new each week, like meet the principal or get to like that time with somebody, so the kids have more to look forward to. Because that is what they found, that the kids eat in the classroom more than they would eat in the cafeteria. So this also gives them the incentive to go to the cafeteria. So hopefully there's maximum participation.
Mr. Leary?
I'm dead set against this. First of all, you're doing it during classroom time, am I correct?
Correct.
So you're taking 20 minutes, a half hour on teaching time when our results are not like the best in the state. So we're going to let them sit in their rooms and eat breakfast, muffin, non-nutrition, or a box of cereal, probably non-nutrition, and we can't get the kids to come to school, so we're going to give them classroom time, taking out of teaching time to do this. This is a no-brainer. I don't understand why you people are voting for this. This is a no-brainer.
Bobby, just so you know, many of those teachers use that first 20 minutes, to do, where the kids they're talking about what day of the week it is. Did you get your homework in? That's usually a transition time in the classroom anyway. And they don't just sit there and let them eat. They're reading them a book, doing something with them. And down in the cafeteria, they're planning to do a guest to come in and work with the, either reading a book to the kids while they're eating or to talk to them about their occupation. We're going to have guest, what do we call it? Breakfast, companions in there. So you may get called to come in and help.
So if you check with surrounding communities, they're all eating breakfast before school, all in the cafeteria. So I just totally disagree with that statement. I think it's a half hour teaching time. It's a half hour play time. That's what the contract's about? Or is it about teaching time?
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is children can't learn if they're hungry.
Well, maybe they can get up in school. In Middletown, they come to school. Portsmouth, they come to school. Tiverton, they all come to school before school, get breakfast, they need it. But we'll have to do it during teaching time. That's the key here, teaching time. That we're taking a half hour, 20 minutes out of their teaching time every day.
Dr. Flowers?
Okay, I'm speaking from experience, as I've said a number of times. We didn't have this particular program back in the day. However, when we talk about teaching, and I say this respectfully, it's not always writing on the board and writing on paper and all of that. As some of my colleagues mentioned, that quite often people are reading, the teacher might be reading to the youngsters. I had fifth grade most of the time. Those kids love to be read to. And they can learn to multitask. They can eat and still listen and understand the story that's going on, or sharing what they happen, say, on the weekend, or talk about some interesting events that are going on. This communication skills, teaching and learning are not solely opening up the books and the writing. Again, this kind of levels the playing field, so to speak, because I think most of us have seen youngsters who might come in and not say anything at first about the fact that they're hungry, they have not had a decent meal maybe all weekend, or any of a number of things that could happen. And what happens? The youngster feels a little wobbly, a little faint, starts getting upset. So he has to be taken out of the room. That's where the lost time is. I understand when people say, well, they should be fed at home. We have to understand sometimes it just doesn't happen. So this, especially since there are no appreciable differences, like you say, it's a $0 impact on the program. I think that's the least that we can do for these youngsters.
Any other questions,
Yeah.
comments? Ms. Bowler?
Just one other point. Pell Elementary School was 74 or 75% free and reduced at the end of the year, and Thompson Middle School was 78%. So, we did a very good job last year of identifying children, and that's a lot of children, that need our help.
Ms. Winslow, do you have any other?
Yeah, I want to know if we're not going to do it during school time, that means we have to do it before school. So do we have staff and budget and extra buses to get kids to school earlier? And do you expect them to come 20 minutes earlier and then run a second set of buses? I mean, I don't even understand how it would work. So we get them in here, they're together, they're in their classroom. We make this, it's not wasted time. I understand we need every minute we can get, but this is part of their day that we're giving to them. So unless I hear, how you would propose to do this differently, I just don't understand why you would be against it.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may respond to that.
Sure, Mr. Leary.
I think you should be looking into all the other districts that have similar populations and see what they do. You can tell the surrounding districts don't do it. So obviously they're busting from Middletown and they're getting close to the population we have. And other districts come in before school and eat breakfast, not during school time. So let's see what Providence does, Central Falls. I'll make phone calls myself. I'll report back next month. And I'll guarantee you almost that they're not taking out teaching time today, especially with the new commissioner.
Having worked in Providence, I'm going to respectfully disagree with
Okay.
that statement.
Thank you. I'll find out. I'm going to call, as I always do. You know that. I check
That's fine. I'm happy to follow up as well.
I check surrounding communities all the time, but I didn't check what we have for population. But still, it bothers me. They were taking 20 minutes and a half hour of teaching time.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
If I may, Mr. Gomes,
Mr. Gonzalez.
I don't think it's fair to say that we're taking the children away from learning. They're still going to be engaged in the classroom. And when they are served a hot meal, they'll have a presenter in the cafeteria with them. So it is all part of their learning curriculum during the day.
Well, we'll see. And nobody else does it around us. Nobody. That I know. I called all the schools up.
Okay, not seeing or hearing any other discussion. All those in favor of the Universal Breakfast Program as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. Next item, 3.9 is purchase order number 32 for masonry cleaning. Just get masonry cleaning at Pell Elementary School. The change order as presented is for cleaning of the efflorescence from the main entrance at Pell Elementary School in the amount of $12,780.37. If approved, this work will be completed prior to school opening.
Is it possible for him to explain it, and then we might make a different kind of a motion on this one? So we'll put the motion forward.
No, we have to have a motion to approve in a second in order to discuss it.
I'll make a motion.
Then we'll just change it.
Motion to approve has been made and seconded.
Mhm.
So would you like to have Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
I moved and
Ms.
she's.
Boatright, Ms. Boland.
This is a motion to approve to discuss.
Well, we'll start with the motion that's before us. If we have to change it, we'll change it if that's what.
Sure. So on the existing school, there's some effervescence that's coming through on the brick face, on the face of the building, as well as the walls in the front, the short walls. So the proposal is to get out and clean all of that up. And there was some discussion regarding maintenance versus, an actual change order. So from that perspective, do we want to go down the road of putting this in a capital maintenance arena, or do we want to have it as a change order to the project to clean up the face of the school as a one-shot deal, and then continue on with maintenance details in the future?
Ms. Boatright, I'm sorry.
Right, so we were in the change order meeting this morning, and it was suggested to put it in capital improvements. There's a little bit of fluorescence on the new building, which we would want to be cleaned as part of the new bill, just to make that as ready. So I'd like to modify it, the motion to be paid out of our capital repair expense instead of the bond.
Second.
So is it the same, all the costs are the same? It's just where the funding is coming from?
Yes.
Right, and the reasoning for this is because this is an existing building, so this has been building up for 10 years, on the old building. So it really is more appropriate to come out of capital improvement funds than it is on our new building. That, we can put that 12,000 away, it'll be there for, working on Rogers. What?
Because it's really a maintenance item instead of a part of the new
And Ronnie
building.
wanted to say something.
So I assume that this 12,700 is earmarked to come out of the contingency fund at the moment for Pell Elementary School.
It was.
What?
It was, and that's why we're modifying the request as a
It
change order.
was, as presented,
Mhm.
the money is meant to come out of the contingency account for Pell Elementary School.
Yes.
Okay. So we would have to make a motion to amend where the funding comes from.
That's what I thought I did, is to
Can
say
do
to
that.
amend it to come out of our regular maintenance account.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the funding to come from the regular maintenance account. Made by Ms. Boatright, seconded by Ms. Boland. Mr. Gonzalez, you'd like to have a discussion? You had something you'd like to add?
I agree with the motion to utilize our maintenance budget to clean the bricks at Pell.
And I'm just gonna ask, there's adequate funding in that account at the moment to
Yes,
cover
sir.
the expense? Mr. Drain?
It looks like, well, clearly we're just doing the front by the entrance, but the entire building's made out of brick. So, I mean, are we not going to do the back or the side? Or I assume what's happening in the front, it must be happening all over the school.
Yeah, I don't believe we assessed the balance of the building. It was just the front facade. And that small piece that is on the new addition could really be handled as a function of punch list. Even while they're there, that time could be tracked separately. It's very minor in the upper corner in the front left.
But eventually the whole building's going to have to be done, correct? I mean, isn't this going to happen everywhere?
If so desired, yeah. It's really aesthetic more than anything.
Ms. Winslow?
That was my question. Is this aesthetic or is it necessary?
The effervescence is just a natural leaching process from the mortar and sometimes brick. So over time, you'll see it on buildings, depending on the color of the brick. You may notice it less, you may notice it more. But they said it's been quite some time, and with the school and the entire property getting the facelift that it just received, it just seems appropriate to get it cleaned up at this time and present a good finished product.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Leary?
If this is now going to be coming out of capital improvement budget, shouldn't we be going out to bid?
I believe it's coming out of the maintenance, not the capital improvement. That's why I was clear to make it that way, the maintenance budget.
That is correct. It will be coming, if approved, it will be coming out of the maintenance budget. And the second part of that question, Ms. Leary, is the OPM has competitively bid for contractors. So they have satisfied the state law requirement.
So other people bid on this project?
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments? So the motion before us is a motion to change the funding for this project from the contingency account to the maintenance budget. Is there, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0. We'll, Mrs. Boland, Ms. Boatright. Now, we will have if there's no other discussion on the main item, we would have a motion to approve the cleaning of the masonry at Pell for $12,708.37. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries
Nay.
7-0. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Ms. Winslow. Was that an opposed?
That was nay.
Nay. Okay. Motion carries 6-1. Ms. Winslow voted.
I'm sorry, I don't, if it's just gonna come back, I don't understand why we're gonna do that with our maintenance funds. It's just aesthetic.
Okay.
Well, I can't.
3.1 is purchase change order number 30, existing fire alarm testing and maintenance, Pell Elementary School. The change order addresses fire alarm testing and resolution of faults between existing building and addition at Pell Elementary School in the amount of $4,763.81. So motion to approve as presented, Dr. Flowers, Ms. Boland. Any discussion, any questions on the motion? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of the motion as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next items, 3.1 is a request for approval of employee leave. Is there a motion to approve as presented? Ms. Winslow, seconded by Mr. Dring. Any questions? Mr. Leary?
What number is this, number 1?
No, 311, I think.
3.
It is the first one.
This is the first one? I mean, sorry,
Yes.
not number 1.
First
It's the first one,
First
yeah.
of the two, 3.1 and 3.12.
Okay.
3.11.
No, this is number 6.
Is what?
Are you asking?
Yeah, we have
The
5
the
a
number?
year.
Right, they've already
Yes,
happened.
on this.
Those 5 have already happened. This is number 6. Number 6 and 4 would have to come before the committee.
Okay. And this is,
It says 3 point.
what's the leave for? Can you explain?
Well, no,
No,
we'll
I
have to go
cannot.
into executive
We have to go
session.
into
So
exec.
we'll move 3.1 into executive session. Excuse me?
3-1.
See, I'm reading 3.11.
3.11.
Yeah.
111.
Mr. Leary's question, I
And
believe,
3.12 was-
Dr. Flowers, was what number teacher this was.
Okay, we'll go into executive session if there's questions on 3.11. 3.12 is there a motion to approve as presented? Ms. Winslow, second by Ms. Bowman. Are there any questions? for
So
three-
same thing applies?
Okay, so 3.12 we'll save for executive session. That gets us into discussion items. First discussion item is school building committee update. Ladies?
Hopefully, everybody here receives our, very lengthily. You've got to sit down with a cup of coffee over those and to thoroughly enjoy them. But we try to keep everybody updated with what's going on. We're in a really good place right now. I think the, Pell Elementary School is right on time. And we have one maybe little glitch on the gates because we ordered them late. We decided we needed a more substantial kind of closing for those for this bus turnaround. But it looks beautiful. We're gonna be able to do tours on the 31st of August, and when that's going to be the ribbon cutting. We hope everybody can make it. It's at 10 a.m.
Mhm.
And then as far as Rogers goes, we continue to have meetings. Just today, they met with all the athletic department to talk about all the intricacies of where the door opens, how you get to the field, what kind of flooring. So it was very, went very well. Got a lot of information, and I think that we feel like we're in a really good place right now. So.
Along with all that, there's a lot of new equipment that's going to go out on that field too, which we
Right.
reviewed all that today.
Right. So,
Handouts.
what's that?
Handouts are over there.
Oh, the handouts. Yes, there's some great handouts that showed some of the examples of what, for possibilities to put in the school. So, and we continue to meet with people that might be interested in helping us fund some extra, some things that we'd really like to see in the school. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, and it's all good.
Mhm.
Any questions on the school building committee update?
Scott, want to say?
No, I'm saying.
Oh,
Go home.
okay,
Thank you, Scott.
thank you.
It's been a long
Ms.
time.
Winslow?
Maybe, you mentioned how there was a problem getting the auditorium chairs out. Did you want
Oh.
to speak on that? Because I don't know how
So-
much the public knows.
So when we got a detailed demolition package back, it was mentioned that to take the chairs out was going to be $12,000. And so we've since looked at that, can we really use that? Because it's, for the public to come get those chairs, and we didn't put a price on them. We just said maybe a donation. So we're re-looking at this point. They're also, when you take them out, they can't stand on their own. Something we didn't really, look into. And so they'd be unsafe unless you, put them on some kind of board. So right now, we're waiting for responses to, if you really want a chair, let us know, and we'll see what we can do. But we do not really at this point want to spend the $12,000 to get them out. It's just an unneeded expense.
Particularly if they don't stand up.
Yeah, and they can't stand up. And then it's the delivery and making sure everybody gets them on the same day. So that's where we are with the chairs.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Leary.
how many requests do we have for the chairs? You know what I'm talking?
120, right? About 120.
So,
Over 100,
so
120.
it's 12, is that much money to take out 112 chairs?
Yes.
That's not the,
Just a minute. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. yeah, that's right.
no, it's fine.
Dr. Flowers.
No, it was just a friend who was a longtime teacher here. She was all excited about getting a couple of the chairs, and I mentioned to her, she said, we're rethinking that. I mean, you'd have something that would fall apart, so the thought was there. It was a good idea. Well, it lasted.
Yes. Okay, any other?
Scott, did you want to say something? You look like
I
you're.
was just going to say, spending some time looking at how these things are assembled and how they would come apart. At the very minimum, there's a row of 5 on an arc, and each of them have a divider. And over the top of that divider is a wooden armchair rest cleat with a metal strip, which I believe is also glued to the underside of the divider. So those would have to be knocked off, for one, with the risk of damage. 2, each divider could be disassembled from the seat bucket and swivel itself. So you would have an armchair rest, you would have a loose divider, you would have a seat bucket and swivel, you would have the next divider, and they have to be pried apart, and they fit together very, very intricately to be replaced, to actually handle all this material, store it, transport it to another place, reassemble it successfully, and install it would take some doing. So it's not as simple as it may seem. So that's the point. It's they would be difficult to reassemble once taken apart.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on the school building report? School building committee report. Thank you. Okay. Next discussion item is 4.2. Consideration to add a full-time school resource officer to Rogers High School and Thompson Middle School. Mr. Leary requests full-time resource officer, 1 each for Thompson Middle School and Rogers High School, and proposes to use ESSA funds to fund the positions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just make a comment and listen to anybody else's comments, and then possibly refer this for the superintendent to check with the police if it's a doable thing with them also. But first, I'm not sure ESSA funds in my investigation could be used. That's why don't you answer that question, Mr. Gonzalez, first. Could ESSA funds be used?
At first thought, I do believe it would be an allowable activity. I'd just like to share that both of our ESSER grants have been planned out without the positions included. So we've forecasted some pilot programs as well as pilot positions that are have earmarked all of our ESSER dollars at this point.
Okay, so to follow up with that, if I'm correct, I sent some things to everybody about the governor's got money to hire SROs in the buildings. I believe that's part of the thing I sent out. I'm not sure how that's all contribute. We have to check into that going forward too, you know.
So in the middle of last week, I reached out to the Department of Education and inquired whether or not there were state funds or federal dollars available for SRO type positions in school districts. And they told me there was not any new funding for those two positions or that position.
Okay, did everybody see the link I sent to them? Okay, so that's why, after comments from everybody, the end result would be see what superintendent can talk to the police chief or whatever and go forward after that and come back next month with a recommendation, whatever the case may be, you know. But anyways, in my opinion, it's the relationships that we're going to form with our students would be very strong, gives the students and the parents, in that case, a trust in the police officer and would help them in a positive light in life. So I'm very much in favor of this, but we'd have to work out the finances and a few other things. But I just wanted to hear the comments from the other people on the committee, you know.
So I just have a couple of questions, and I do support Mr. Lear in this. I think it's a great idea, but my questions are, I'm assuming the SROs would be provided by the police department as they are now. So how does the funding get cross-accounted, even if it was available to us through ESSA? How do we pay a police officer working for the city?
So to the best of my knowledge, our surrounding communities, towns pay for the positions, and then they are allocated to the school buildings. Put position there.
Okay, so it would be a request of us of the city to fund the SRO to provide for the schools.
That's correct.
That's the only question I had at the moment. Anybody else? Question? Ms. Winslow?
I have lots of questions, but I'll just ask one. We have someone at Thompson now, right? Or we're going, what's the status of SROs in Newport Public Schools, I guess? Just tell us.
We have part-time in all the schools.
Okay. And
They-
how are they funded now?
Through the city.
Yep. So the discussion item is to talk about adding them full-time.
Well, I would assume from
Right.
part-time to full-time.
Okay.
So just,
Oh, yeah.
I'll get to you. I just want to make sure. Are you all set?
I could go on and on, so go ahead.
Okay,
Someone else.
Mr. Dren.
Dr. Jermaine, I thought I saw something where there was going to be a police officer at Thompson Middle School in the dean's office for 2 months. Is that correct?
There's an office. We're setting up an actual office. He has
Also-
not had one
Oh,
in
okay.
there. So we're trying to replicate how we set them up how we set up the officers at Rogers. So that's what we're doing. And as far as how long during the day that person's actually going to be there, I'm not clear. I think maybe setting up an office will avail the officer to be able to stay in the building longer if we have an office with a computer, et cetera.
So you're saying there is an office at
There-
Rogers?
Yes, we have an actual office for the person. And I believe Principal Barrios is trying to do the same thing. So the SRO can stay in the building for most of the day instead of possibly going back to the station or wherever he or she goes to do their reports or other things.
And how long does the police officer stay at Rogers during the day?
It varies. Most of the time, it's just the mornings, or if we have special events going on, the officer will return possibly.
So isn't there one at Officer Thompson, the dean right now for the police?
I'm
He's
sorry,
sharing the dean this last year. They shared office the first 2 months.
I'm not
Thompson,
aware of that.
I'm aware of that.
No.
He shares the dean's office right now for 2 months, first 2 months. So
I
maybe get a new
believe-
office for him or her.
Mr. Leary, are you referring to last year?
Yes.
Oh, that-
September and October last year.
I will check on
Well,
that.
they were. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoke up, Mr. Chairman.
Miss Dr. Flowers.
So we call these the school resource officers. I know they call that just about everywhere. And I mean, I think some of us are used to seeing police presence sometimes when it's needed. And on other occasions. And I was just wondering what resource the officer provides. Is it, on the positive side, is really establishing a good working relationship with the students and the adults too. The fact that you have your, we say, community helpers, helping out. But what would that officer's responsibilities be, and how do they, like, if you say someone's in the dean's office, well, everyone has to be someplace, it doesn't really matter. But just what is the function of having the police officer there besides protection of all the personnel, students and adults in the school, being proactive, having the expertise of how to deal with particular difficulties. I understand that there are certain groups who feel, it's not such a great idea. Again, I speak from my experience, but this elementary is not mentioned here. But like the DARE offices, it worked out well because the kids would see that, the youngsters would see that, here's one of our people, one of our police officers, and they start to understand the work of that particular person. But I'm just wondering out loud what the job specs would be for the SRO. And the police department can spare, a couple of people.
Ms. Boebert.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about whether there could be training, because there's working with youth at Pell and Thompson and Rogers, and it just seems that, we have trauma with a lot of our families. We have a lot of mental health issues, and it just seems like a sort of to Dr. Flowers' comment is that you'd want to have somebody being able to do multiple things, not just what a typical police training would be, it seems to me. So I would advocate that if there was to be anybody in this position, that they would have some real experience with young people and with to really address some of the issues that are going on in school systems today, not just policing as they're trained in police academy, because I don't think that's what we really need. Just saying.
Mr. Leary.
Yeah, I can't talk more than twice, but I've done it, breaking the rules here. So Newport does not have any SRO trained officers. The funding gets cut every year from the VSO training. So they send community police officers here. So they're not SRO certified. I'm not sure if that makes a difference to Mrs. Boatwright's point, but it's something we can look into. I think I'd like to just refer to get some information back from the police. I don't think it's authority of me to do that. And then if it's something that we look into, I think the funding, we obviously, we have a serious cash flow. We're flush with cash. So we could pay for it for a couple of years and figure it right out from there. But I still think that Mr. Drings wanted to send me the article. You can maybe comment on it about how the governor is willing to pay for it. I thought it was an article you sent out,
Yeah, I think he did say that he was willing to put some money up for SRO officers. I'd have to find the article.
Yeah.
You can send that out to everybody if you want.
I think it certainly we can continue and refer to the superintendent and to the business manager to come back next month with some answers and the funding possibilities.
Can I just ask a quick question? Dr. Juman, have you had a discussion at all with Mr. Vance or Mr. Barrios about whether they would want an SRO officer in the school?
I did, and they both said yes. And then Principal Westman wondered why she wasn't getting one.
Ms. Winslow.
I wanted to thank Dr. Flowers and Ms. Boatwright, because yes, the role of the SRO, what's the role and the expectation, what do we hope they achieve? I wanted to know that. And also, there's a lot of mixed messages and data about are SROs effective or not. There are a lot of populations that do not have good relationships with the police in this country. We know this. So, maybe in Newport we can make it work. We're using them now. I'd love to know a little bit more about them, but are these officers going to be trained as mentors and trained to work with our kids, and what our kids need? And are we actually working on building relationships with them? Not to say like, oh, okay, the police are always here for you, but even beyond that, like these are role models in our community or leaders, and anything that could be for the kids, because we all know that it's an adult, right? It's a trusted adult that makes a difference in a kid's life. A lot of the controversy around school resource officers is when, you know, adolescent behavior gets characterized as violent crime. So how would we prevent that from happening in our schools? And are the teachers or is the dean going to be calling on the SRO to provide disciplinary support? Like, we're trying to put out a fire that we might not have, you know? So if we're going to go forward with an SRO full time, I want to know what they're doing in the school. I want them to present to us like they're any community partner. Every year, come to the school committee, tell us what you're doing, tell us what your goals are, tell us what you hope to achieve, and that they are also transparent with the parents of any kids they're working with, because if they are involved in disciplinary actions, I want the parents to know why, and what role they played. Maybe we even, if you want the SRO to be part of the school community, maybe they participate in SIT meetings or PTOs, or, you know, Ellen Pinnock is doing community dinners. Maybe we want SROs to be part of actually the parent community. This is a really, really, really sticky kind of area to tread in. So we have to make sure that it's about the relationship between the kids and the parents and the SRO. Otherwise, I'm afraid that it reinforces a lot of the fear and the just, we know when policing gets out of hand, and we know kids don't have the best control of themselves sometimes, and I really don't want to see a situation turn ugly. So I want them to be part of our school community, but I'm very lukewarm on the idea of going further with it. I'd like to hear from the principals, you know, what do they hope these people will achieve in our schools?
Thank you. Ms. Boatright?
I'd just also like to understand, Mr. Leary said that no Newport police are trained in SRO. I just really like to understand, what is that training and how does it differ, and, you know, how does that work? So,
I don't know how the training is, but other districts have SRO police officers with the title, whatever that may be.
are they trained also? I'm sorry.
If they have to get the training, if they're SRO, they're trained. Otherwise, they're just community police officers,
Okay.
which may be a blessing to what Ms. Winslow said. You can use them maybe in a different way as a community police officer versus an SRO trained police officer. I don't know enough about it. I just know to me, it seems like a good idea. It's a win-win. And as you'll see in a few minutes in the budget, we have over $5 million of a surplus. So, I mean, we can start looking at that too if we have to. But I still think Mr. Drink's right. According to the article it was sent, the governor's got money to pay for it. You know?
All right, now I think we'll have more discussion on this next month for sure. I'm gonna move
So
along.
who can we bring in next month, Mr.
We'll work on it, I don't know,
Okay,
but
maybe
between
principals?
now and then, the superintendent and I will work on it,
All
trust
right,
me.
great, thank you.
We'll have a very robust discussion next month. I'm sure all
Thank
your
you.
questions will be answered.
Perfect.
Okay, we're gonna move along. That moves us into consent agenda. Consent agenda, motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. Ms. Boland, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any questions on the consent agenda? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda approved, 7-0. That gets us to monthly correspondence. I believe we have our routine monthly correspondence, school building committee notes from June 6th. Yeah, I believe that's it. Is there a motion to accept the correspondence as presented? Dr. Flowers, Ms. Winslow, any questions or comments on the correspondence? Not seeing any of those in favor of accepting the correspondence as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is reports from superintendent and staff. Is there a motion to accept the reports as presented? Dr. Flowers, seconded by Ms. Boatright. And the first two is always 7.1, 7.2, Mr. Gonzalez, and the expenditure revenue and restricted grant accounts.
Good evening again, school committee members. What the information I've shared about the potential surplus for our FY 2022, as it stood at the end of July, was approximately $1.7 million. I did hold a small reserve for invoices that potentially will come in over the next month as we soft close our books and no longer allow items unless they are absolutely applicable to the prior year to be paid for. Something, just as an example, may be a tuition bill that was either overlooked or not sent in at some point during fiscal year 2022. With that said, there was, we ended our year again very comfortably with regard to our forecasted revenue and our forecasted expenditures for the year. And the surplus is now added to our previous fund balance from the previous 2 years. So are there any particular questions that you have about any of the reports I've shared?
Mr. Leary.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, a wonderful job. The press should know that in your reports, all the ESSA funding is listed in the back of the grants, which we requested a few months back, so you can find where the ESSA money is being spent at, or how it's being spent. So it's good. Thank you for that. And so a couple of questions. Maybe the first one would be the one you explained first. Maybe explain to the press particularly, I understand it, we've got conversations about this, maybe the LEAF program with the $6.9 million, the possibility of 1.7 more getting that. Maybe you can explain how you can get an additional $1.7 million.
Sure, I'd be happy to explain. So when the ESSER dollars were allocated statewide to districts, some of the lower performing districts, there's approximately 5 of us, that were offered additional funds if we matched the funds that would be added and earmarked those dollars for the initiatives they've outlined for us within the LEAPS program. So there are approximately half dozen of us directors that participated in, I believe, 7 all-day trainings, and we've outlined strategic ideas, initiatives to help eliminate learning loss that may have occurred and to strengthen the education system in our district. And we have, as of August 1st, submitted an application as well as provided an outline on the matching dollars, which we have earmarked. And I mentioned earlier, we have earmarked all of our ESSER funding, of which they fall within the LEAPS initiatives. So as it stands right now, we haven't been awarded the monies, but I do believe we are in a great position to receive all of the award. They do have a finite timeline, and they expire at the same time as the ESSER 3 funds, which is September 30th, 2024. So we have 2 years to spend the money on targeted initiatives.
So that's about 8.6 million. Is that we're talking some of that number?
That's correct.
Okay. So first of all, thank you. So the press can understand that's probably the biggest part of the meeting. Let's talk about ESSA money and money here, going through it. How about, to benefit the press again, how much money, and I know the answer, but they can say the bills. ESSA 2 funds expires on 9/30/23. Am I correct?
That's correct.
And how much money is that when it expires?
We were awarded $3.2 million And through the end of July, and I don't anticipate additional charges to the prior year, but we have spent about 2.7 million. We have $500,000 with our spending plan to be exhausted this school year, as well as simultaneously spending down some of the ESSER 3 award,
And they expire on 9/30/24?
the ESSER 3.
Right,
Yes,
and how about ISTA 2?
9/30/2023.
And what's that funding?
Excuse me.
How much money's in that?
We have approximately $500,000 left of the ESSER $2.
And how much was it total?
3.2 ESSER 2.
Thank you. That's good. Nobody else has any questions, Mr. Chairman, or not,
Nope, I don't think there are any others. Thank you.
So if I could finish up, I know I hog all the time. So first of all, you're doing a wonderful job with this. And extend the life of the money legally is very challenging, might be the proper word. I'm not sure the best adjective, But that being said, it creates a tremendous amount of surplus for us. So one last question I have concerns with, and I know Mrs. Bowen said this many times before, how many staff are we hired out of these ESSA funds that possibly could be a problem for us down the road in 2024?
So I'd just like to clarify that any of the staff we've earmarked funding from the stimulus ESSER package were part of pilot programs. So they will have to substantiate work performed and growth in order for a recommendation for continuation of the positions, as well as partnerships.
So was it like 10 positions? I mean, idea what number that positions is?
Approximately 12 to 15
12 to
we had
15.
earmarked, between both pots of funding, which is roughly
And
10
so these
million.
people are aware that possibly in September of into 24, their positions could be eliminated.
I'm not sure what they're aware of, but the positions and partnerships are pilot programs.
So
So
should
pilot
we,
would suggest that they may not be continued after the date of the 2024. They're pilot programs.
could
They've only been
continue?
funded through 2024.
Right, so could, keywords could there.
Could.
Correct. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Ms. Boatright.
I just wanted to have the superintendent and finance director talk a little bit about the fund balance and the plan that you put forth to the city and how we were going to use it, because it does extend the ability to use some of those funds beyond to keep. But can you speak to that, please?
That's a great point, Ms. Boatright. We have had conversations in past school committee meetings that our fund balance is earmarked for our educational sustainability plan, and we've shared this discussion with the city earlier this year in either January or February of 2022, where we put a plan together. We have earmarked sustainability plan where we've piloted some positions, we've piloted programs, and if they prove themselves to be worthwhile, we would then ask the school committee to continue with the programs. Right now, we're calling it the education fund.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any questions on the restricted grants? Okay. Any questions for the superintendent on enrollment, demographics, and homeless reports? Not seeing any. 7.4, superintendent's update partnership collaborations or personnel. Any questions on those?
Maybe on the personnel, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, if she could tell how many new positions have been hired and how many, anything new, in other words, that may be coming out of ESSA funds or whatever.
I can't I can't give you that number right now, but I'm sure I'll get that together for you and send it to you. But the ESSER, nothing's changed with the ESSER funded positions, and I do not believe we had any additional ones, but I can go back and check.
Maybe
You'll get a listing of all positions and at all schools. Hopefully in September, the principals are putting that together for you now.
you may want to take a moment to mention the difficulty you're having in hiring
Oh,
of positions
sure.
at this.
Anybody
Yes, in your
listening?
updates, this is for the public more so, but there is a teacher shortage. If people are not aware of it, it's not only statewide, it's nationwide, and we're having a very difficult time finding math and STEM teachers. So if anyone's looking for a job in math or STEM, we definitely would like to hear from you. And we'll continue our search, and we're trying to look at all candidates, all schools, and we've been reaching out to several agencies to see if we can get some support in those areas. But thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. Yes, math and sciences. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of the reports as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0. Suggested meeting dates. We have several meetings upcoming. Tuesday, August 23rd is a 5:30 p.m. Newport here at the Career Technical Center. It's a special meeting of the Newport School Committee. There is a regular scheduled school committee meeting next on September 13th. The school building committee will meet on August 22nd, September 12th, and September 26th, all at 5:30. And I believe those are all going to be here in the NACTech building. That's it.
May I?
Yeah,
I just wanted to also alert the public, I'll be holding a town hall meeting for, and that date will be coming out. I believe it's going to be a week from Wednesday or 2 weeks from Wednesday. And then our building principals will be having town hall meetings at different locations throughout the city. I believe today we discussed, we have a meeting over here, for instance, at Rogers. Then we're going to have a meeting at the Florence Gray Center. And then I believe Mr. Vance wanted to go to it. There's a third location, but we'll be reaching out and visiting different locations. Our principals will. I'll hold the district-wide online, and I'll also probably be attending the other ones. But we'll update you with those dates. Those will be in September with the building leaders.
thank you. Mr. Drain.
Are we eventually going back to Pell? And is there any reason why we can't in September?
In Pell,
Yeah. Our school committee meets in Pell.
we're hoping to be there, yes.
Maybe a misprint.
I don't want to say anything
Well,
until I have the confirmation
No,
from
it just says the
the,
meeting on the
the
13th is-
technology and everything else.
No, it just says the meeting on September 13th is here. So
Think
I
it's
just-
please.
Yeah, it's a placeholder. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary.
could we put on the agenda that we get a summer school update for the programs? I asked that when we start summer school, number of kids in each one, how many attended, the results, things like that.
We'll have that for you in September.
Thank you.
And not hearing or seeing any other discussion, we'll move into executive session at this time. If somebody could make the motion by reading 9.1 to move it, Mr. Drain.
The school committee may seek to convene if warranted executive session under jurisdiction of Rhode Island State Law, Chapter 42-46-5A1. Any discussions of the job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that such person or persons affected shall have been notified in advance in writing and advised that they may require that the discussion be held in an open meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second? Ms. Winslow? All those in favor of moving into executive session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0 will adjourn into executive session and report out afterwards.
Are we doing that here or next door?
I'm not sure. I
Right here?
we do it here once everything's.
Maybe I'll use the.
Sounds like Colleen got another room ready.
We might have to run, because she did a breakdown.
Yeah.